based on what you know about the Bible, what is the opposite of faith? And it's something I've been struggling with because Jesus turns in the passage we're going to read today, and he tells this woman and he tells his disciples that this woman is demonstrating great faith. And faith is one of those words that's sort of like nebulous, I think, in a little bit. Because even in your definitions, you'll have, well, okay, it could be unbelief. It could be, doubt. It could be fear. It could be, maybe it's not quite that, because people who are scared still respond and still do things. So is it fear? Is it unbelief? And it forces you to sort of like wrestle with, okay, so what do I believe is faith? And you guys have heard like illustrations where somebody will go and when you sit down on a chair, that's faith. Oh, okay. And faith is often identified with the Christian life. Is faith confidence? Is faith action? Sometimes when you ask for a definition of faith, you hear faith is the substance of things hoped for. Is faith rest? It is probably one of the most important aspects of the Christian walk is that of faith. And it is something that Jesus Christ celebrates in Matthew chapter 15 with somebody who you wouldn't really expect to have great faith. Especially if you're reading Matthew from a Jewish perspective or one that how God is working in the lives of his chosen people. And next thing you know, this woman who's not even living there, who's not even from there, who's actually part of a nation that was judged by God, actually shows faith so incredible that Jesus stops and celebrates the faith of this woman. And we are going to examine the faith of this woman, specifically through the interaction we're going to see between this woman of Phoenicia and Jesus. The first point we're going to see is our faith is shaped through the problems in our life. And let's look at Matthew chapter 15, verse 21 through 28. And Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon." But he did not answer her a word. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, "Send her away, for she is crying after us." And he answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And he answered, "It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." And she says, "Yes, Lord. Yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." And then Jesus answered her, "O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire." And her daughter was healed instantly. The first point we're going to see is our faith is shaped through the problems in our life. See, Jesus, after last week in his confrontation with the Pharisees, and his very public, very brutal, very blunt confrontation, which the Pharisees left offended and were mad, Jesus withdrew. And he actually withdrew practically into another county or another state, we could say. He withdrew into this district right here. So as you guys look, so here's Phoenicia. This is what we know as Israel, Palestine, Palestina too. So this is it. So this is sort of broken, and these are broken up into what we would think of as states with the Roman Empire, right? And so he has been right here, and he withdrew, and he heads up into the area of Tyre and Sidon, right there. Tyre was actually a very famous city, which we're going to see here in a sec. And a woman from, as it says, behold, a Canaanite woman. Some of your translations will say that she was a Gentile, and that is correct. But the literal Greek word is Canaanite. It has identified her with not just being a Gentile, but from an origin, from a history that in so many ways was actually sort of older than the nation of Israel itself. Because if you guys remember when Egypt had the nation of Israel in captive and trapped Moses and led his people out, and they were to come and they were to judge Canaan because of their wickedness. And as we know, the entire book of Judges, they did not do the best job at it. They did not really judge them. And there was a lot of places and a lot of cities that had actually escaped. So the heritage of this lady is actually pretty ancient. And they said that she is a woman from Canaan, which would have been this Phoenician area. And Phoenicia maintained an incredible history of the Greek alphabet. They were probably the ones who actually invented that, which I did not realize. They had incredible culture. They were world-renowned for their glass work, and their trade was known around the world, especially for the dye purple. Workers in the purple dye. They would work, and Phoenicia actually means land of purple. And the Phoenicians meant purple people. Okay. On the outskirts of town, workers, and this is what really, it sort of grosses me out, okay? Because we have snails here in Washington. Do you guys know that? And slugs and snails. And salamanders, yeah, because all sorts of things. And there is a type of snail that's off the coast. It's a coastal snail that when they would get agitated and they would freak out, they would sort of leave behind this sort of toxic-y, venom-y thing. Sort of like yeah. And somehow, people thought, hey, what if we put this slime and mix it with fabrics? What does it do? And it creates a color of purple. And so because it was off the coast here, Phoenicia actually becomes known for it. And as you can imagine, having large quantities of snails and playing around in their slimy stuff, it probably wasn't the most aromatic, luxurious smell that you've ever had. It would be like the mushroom farm down in Lacey, or pew. And so she would come, and so oftentimes what would happen is people who would work with this stuff, hands would become dyed purple. And so the fact that they identified this woman from there and from that area, and they were so confident, I tend to think, since this was a huge occupation here, she quite possibly had dye on her hand. It was a very common thing to see there. So as you guys look at it, look at that. I love learning about this stuff. And so it's quite possible that when this lady came up and she's harassing them, she's from that area, she's coming and her hands are purple, she's from the area and she is desperate. And she's desperate for some help and an answer. And the problem that she was having is it says, my daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. We're not given any more specifics on that. We just know that it was severe, it was bad, and this mom, as any of you with children would do, had gotten desperate enough to the point that you will try anything to cure your kid. Even talking with some random dude from another state who has been rumored to have the power and ability to heal and take care of these things. It was so bad. It also says, at the end of verse 28, and her daughter was healed instantly. So it sounds like it wasn't just that the demon was there and it was wreaking havoc on her, but that she was actually injured and she was sick in some way as a result of this. And so she had a problem. There was a struggle there. And she was hoping that Jesus would be able to fix it. Now, when it comes to people do not like trials, people do not like tribulations, people do not like it when their life gets hard. And if anyone tells you, oh, I love it, then they just haven't had hardship yet, okay? Because everybody goes through it in some way. We struggle and we have our problems. Some people struggle one way, some people struggle with another way. And faith happens to be the way that it interacts with it. See, because our faith and how our faith is expressed and how our faith is demonstrated is shown through the problems in our life. Our faith is not demonstrated when life is good and happy and all hunky-dory, okay? It doesn't happen. It is shaped through the problems in our life. And as you think about this, have you guys ever played with Play-Doh? Come on. Have we played with Play-Doh before? Thank you. Okay. And so Play-Doh is really fun, all right? Especially brand new, fresh Play-Doh. You can just smell it all day. Because it smells so good. And you take the Play-Doh. Now, if I was to ask you with this Play-Doh to make a truck out of this Play-Doh, but there's a catch. You aren't allowed to mash it, squish it, smush it, squeeze it, roll it, nothing. How many of you guys can make a truck out of it? Can't happen. And see, when God uses our faith in our Christian life and our Christian experience, it is always shaped by the bad and by the struggles that we have. And this lady has a problem, and her faith was being shaped and stretched through this experience. Another way to look at your faith and the problems that you have. So, if you guys, the problems are, yep, okay. Do you guys like finger things? When I was a kid, and I didn't want to go to sleep, I had a flashlight in my bed, and I would do things like this. I'd create my own. And when you look at it, I mean, the shapes can end up pretty cool. Look at that. I made a pretty sweet-looking bear. There's a bunny. There's a dog. There's another dog. There's a donkey with a, I don't know. What is that? It's a goat. Oh, see? Who knew? I thought that was the ears of a donkey, okay? So, there's a duck. I don't know what that is. See, but the shadows are really cool, aren't they? When you see the shadows thrown up there. But if you really look at it, I mean, is this really that fancy? Looks pretty goofy, doesn't it? Look. Okay? So this is how faith is shaped, okay? Because what happens is a light shines through our problems. And what you have here is the demonstration of our faith. So God is using the problems to shape and mold our hands and shape and mold it to create something on the other side. And this is the backdrop that we have this incredible demonstration of faith is this woman is broken. Her child, her daughter is suffering, is struggling. And the mom most likely has tried everything she knows. And this is how we see her faith come out, is through this problem, through this lens. And the same thing happens in our life. Our problems are the hand shape that allows the image of our faith to show. We have to have problems in order to see the result. And I say that, I'm like, that's lame. Because you know what? Nobody likes that. They don't. We don't. But the thing we have to start off with, okay? And so what we're going to do is try to help us build our faith. And so we're going to talk about this here a little bit more, but I want us to get into our minds is right now we are currently struggling with something in our life. It could be anything. Anything. All right? And oftentimes we can pray about that, but then we hide it. And we can pray about it, and we sort of don't want to talk about it or discuss it, but we're struggling with it, we're wrestling with it, and it feels like it's squishing us together, and we don't like it, and we don't like the way it makes it feel, and we're just like, God, stop it. I don't like this anymore. I don't like this problem. I don't like what I'm struggling with. And so in order to start looking at how our problem is being used to shape our faith, we start thinking in your mind, I want you guys to, in the back of your mind, label and think about that problem you currently have. It can be with a person. It can be with just life in general. Maybe it's a housing situation. Maybe it's a vehicle situation. Maybe it's a struggle with your child or your son or daughter. It could be any number of things. But find that problem in the back of your mind. I just want you just to like grab it, stick it back there, okay? All right. Let's keep going. The second thing that we're seeing through this passage here is our faith is measured through our persistence. Now, I really enjoyed as I was reading this, I sort of like all the different interactions that happen between. You have the interaction between Jesus and the disciples. We have the interaction between this lady and the disciples. We have the interaction of Jesus and this lady. We have the interaction of the daughter at home with whoever's staying with her. We have dogs in here. There's a lot of different interactions, okay, that happen. And so what plays out is really sort of comical because, so they're going into this land and they're honestly trying to get away. And if you looked at the passage in Mark 7, it actually offers some more insights and details onto this event. They were really trying to get away, and Mark straight up says they couldn't. People kept following him. They kept going, and he's trying to get away and trying to go, and here he is, and they're in the town, and they're in this area, and they're in the county, and they find a house, and they go into the house. They're just trying to get away. And so I picture this entire interaction as sort of happens around. So here's Jesus, and he has his disciples, and they're going, and they've Airbnb'd, a place or whatever. Is that what it's called? Airbnb, baby. Yeah, something like that, yeah. And so they're going there. If you guys haven't tried that, it's really sweet. And so they're going to somebody's house, and they're going, and I'm guessing that like right behind here somewhere, this lady's like, there they are. Hey, son of David. And she's running down the street, okay, trying to get their attention, all right? And the disciples are trying, let's get out of here. Come on, we don't want them to find us. And they go and try to hurry as quick as they can inside, okay? And so Jesus, he hears this lady screaming down the street. He doesn't say anything. He just goes in. Probably feigns the whole, I didn't hear you. Goes inside. And the disciples are trying to shuffle in. They're trying to close the door. And she realizes that Jesus isn't going to answer. So she turns and she starts yelling, it says, to the disciples. It says, my daughter severely oppressed by a demon, but he did not answer his word. And disciples came and begged him, saying, send her away. She's crying after us now. So I'm thinking she's like on the, that person who won't leave your house. Hello. Knocking. Hey, I see you in there. Somebody help me. Somebody listen to me. Hello. And the disciples are like, we're just trying to take a break. And this woman won't shut up. And Jesus, just heal her already. Just do your thing. Come on. Doesn't really seem to be bugging Jesus. She was persistent. And then here in the midst of this and her persistence and banging and trying to get their attention and stuff's going on, they say, send her away. And he answers in verse 24, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. In essence, he tells the disciples, I am not here. It is not my mission to heal her. It is not my mission to take care of all the sick and hurting people here. My mission is the lost sheep of Israel. And sort of like hindsight, for a guy who limited his ministry to one dinky little country, you guys seen how big Israel is? It's like the size of Delaware. It's tiny. It's just a little thing. For a guy who just hung out right there, his ministry is hands down the most global reaching, global impacting ministry of anybody on the face of the planet. Anybody, ever. The Bible is like the greatest selling book ever. So he's like, no, my mission is not there. My mission is to the sheep of Israel who have lost their way, who are lost, and it's not here. The only reason he's in Phoenicia in the first place is because he wants to get away from a little bit. He wants to take it before he starts the last part of his journey as he starts heading back in. And so, but this woman was persistent. Lord, help me. At the beginning of the sermon, I asked, what is the opposite of faith? We're going to get a little glimpse of this. This lady's persistence reveals something about her faith. Faith is shown through action. James has said that faith without works is dead. Faith is not just a thought, but it involves an action. If it is believable, there is something behind it. There's something, it's not this like, there's just something, there's the oomph behind faith. And her faith was so oomph that she was determined and persistent that Jesus had the answer and Jesus was going to fix it, or could. And if she persisted enough, he would break down eventually and heal her. So he kept at it. Now, kids can teach us a lot in this area. Kids believe whatever problem they have is the biggest one they have ever encountered in their life. And they will stop at nothing to get an answer from you. Sometimes it's because they have no memory and they have just forgotten what they said about 2 minutes ago. And other times, do you guys feel it when I do this? Because I feel it. Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Dad. Mommy said, hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Stop it. Dad. Hey, I got a problem, Dad. Hey. Hey. Dad. Stop it. What are they doing? It's persistence. Dad, I have a problem. What is it? I don't remember. Are you kidding me? Oh. Okay, they just do it, and they just bug you, and they just drive you nuts sometimes. But you love them, because then when they look at you with their little puppy dog eyes, you're like, here, you want my credit card? Okay, yeah. Okay. And so they go, and so there's a problem. They're persistent, and they keep at it, because they believe their problem is big, and they believe that you can solve their problem, and they are determined to get an answer. And then when you give them an answer, sometimes they try again. Are you sure what you said is what you said? Yes. Okay. Off and go. But they are persistent. And a lot of times we as parents, we're like, stop it. You're annoying me. Stop it. But there's some truths about this. This lady, she was persistent. She was so persistent, it actually says that she got on her knees. So I'm thinking somehow she got in the house. We don't know. Maybe the disciples are like, hey, they open the door, like all 12 of them are there at the door, like, okay, we can stop her from coming in. And they're like, hey, you can't come in. She's like, circles. She was going. They're trying to stop her, and she goes, and she falls right at his knees. And once a child locks around your legs, is there anything removing them? They're not leaving. She was wrapped. She was persistent. There was a problem. She knew he could answer it, and she was at it. People, when we come to the Lord in prayer and in faith, this needs to be our response. We need to get on our hands and knees and wrap around his leg and not leave until he gives us an answer. And maybe hung on just a little bit longer to make sure we heard it right. Okay? Don't give up. Wrap, hold, hug on. This is what it means to be faith, and this is how we can measure this woman's faith. She was persistent. So I'm giving you all permission. Be that child to God. Okay? This is what it's about. Be persistent. This is a demonstration of our faith, and sometimes this is a little bit awkward because we're like, well, God heard it one time. Yes, but you know what? Keep doing it. Have you gotten an answer yet? No. Keep at it. Keep at it. She had a problem. And lastly, but here, point number 3, okay? We're going to see this next one. Our faith rests on how we see Jesus. So she has this woman from Canaan has said a couple words or has a couple phrases. She has talked to God, or she has called God. She has called Jesus Lord, Son of David, Lord, Master. Yeah. Lord is a very general term of saying boss, master, teacher, wise one. It's a term of respect. But then she uses this phrase, son of David. I don't know if she had, theological training to know the significance of this word. I mean, she's from Phoenicia. She is not a Jewish woman. She probably was not trained in the synagogues. But she had probably picked up a few things about it, and she knew, okay, when you talk about the son of David, you're talking about the Messiah. And I think she thought and she believed that this guy is quite possible the Messiah. But as a Phoenician woman, and, we got your own thing, she might not have actually knew, So we don't know if this is like, she understood the deep theological ramifications of calling him that. Or that's just sort of how she understood him. Like, you're the guy. You're the guy that I've heard is going to, make Israel great again. And we have this exchange when she's on her knees and she has walked up and he says, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Jesus must be racist. He just called her a dog. People think this, okay? This toxic masculinity that is rampant around the Bible. Perfect example of it. But I think if we, read Matthew chapter 1 through where we are now, the only people that Jesus was ever mean or hostile to were the Pharisees and those who were trying to stop his mission to the cross. That's it. So with that hindsight, so far Jesus has not shown any problems dealing with anybody. And the fact that she is calling him the son of David, I think we get some insight here. It says, you have called me the son of David, all right? You have called me Israel's Messiah. By saying son of David, you are specifically attaching me to this country and to this place, and yet you, a woman from Phoenicia, a Gentile woman, wants my blessing. And what Jesus has already told his disciples is, I am reaching for the lost sheep of Israel. I am trying to reach and make and connect with Israel. In a term that we would understand, I am trying to make Israel great again. And yet you want a blessing from me. This is what Jesus is capturing right here by this phrase. Because the Jews, they call the Gentiles dogs. They weren't chosen. They were gross. They were this. Okay? And the Gentiles are like, oh yeah? You call us dogs? Well, you're dogs. So they called each other dogs. They called each other worthless. They called each other other colorful things that we'd hear of. That's what they did. Be very similar to, not even saying this is right, but in middle school, those who were of Hispanic descent, they would call all white people crackers. And we who were crackers called them graham crackers. Accomplished nothing. Well, we did. They go, well, yeah, well, you call us a cracker, well, you're a cracker. That's what it was. Kids are great, you know that. And so here it is. Oh, so, wait a second, you've called me the son of David. I'm a Jew then, and you're asking for a blessing from me? Do you know what you're asking? Do you know what you're saying? And so he says it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. And I think it's a very common, a very sort of like a proverb statement that actually formed. And Jesus, as we can see, does not believe that about this woman. But he's drawing out the fact, you've called me the son of David. You've called me Israel's Messiah. And yet you want a blessing from me. And this reveals how she viewed Jesus. She says, yes, Lord. Even the dogs eat the crumbs or the scraps that fall from their master's table. She doesn't even deny it. She's like, yeah, I know I'm not a part of your family. I know I'm not blood. I know I have no claim to the promises and blessings of that, but I know they're so big that I, as the dog, can enjoy the scraps and my desires can be answered. She's like, I'm not asking for the good food. I'm just asking for a little gleam of one of the crumbs that falls from the table. You imagine how she pictured the actual blessing on the table and the one providing it? If she was confident as a dog, she would be satisfied in the blessings of God. When she viewed Jesus, she believed that he and his power and what he was doing was so incredible that even if she caught just a little scrap of it, what she wanted would have been answered. That is faith. That's how big she viewed Jesus. I just want the table scraps. That is how awesome you are, Jesus. That is how incredible you are. I just want, just give me some scraps. They're going to be so good. It'll be everything I need. See, faith is confidence in another person. At times we know this can be ill-placed. Some people are not deserving of it. But when we place it on Jesus, it is never ill-placed. It is exactly what we want. And whether we're in his primary plan or just the beneficiary of something that comes off of it, you will be satisfied through the work of Jesus on your behalf. She believed he was powerful enough to answer it. She believed he would love a Canaanite woman that much to answer it. I mean, do we believe like this woman? I mean, really? Do we believe that God can and is able to take care of your request and problem? I mean, do we trust that he loves us? And this is where I think is the biggest one, because sometimes he won't answer it the way we want. But do we trust and have enough faith in Jesus where we're like, he loves me enough and knows me enough, and he knows what is good for me, that he's going to give what I need? Because dogs, you know what dogs do? They eat everything. They will eat their own poo-poo. Am I right? Okay. Now, is it a good idea for the dog to eat the poo-poo? No. But sometimes when we as dogs come to God with a problem, we're like, God, I really want to eat my poo-poo. And God's like, you should not eat that. But it smells. No, just come over here. But I want, no, okay. So sometimes we're dogs and we're a little clueless and we need some help. And just because we ask for it, God's like, I know what's better for you. So I have a way to, I've said this a few times, and I'll keep trying to say, God, for his children, when you request something from him, okay, he only pretty much gives two answers. And no's not it. He says, yes, what you're asking is what I will give you, or no, I have something better for you. So when we ask, that's something to think about. It's like, no. Oh, no. I have something much better for you, child. I have something so much better for you that's going to answer and minister and love. And so this lady now is on her knees. She has demonstrated and given her faith. And Jesus says, oh, woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire. And her daughter was healed instantly. The last one is faith expects the expected. Not the unexpected, the expected. And you might be like, wait a minute. It's not how I hear that phrase before. But see, what faith is faith is confidence and an expectation that God will answer your request. You are expecting God to respond. You are praying in such a way that you are praying and you're just waiting for God to answer it. You're expecting something. You're expecting what you're expecting. Now, every once in a while, we're not going to quite get it, okay? But when this woman comes up to Jesus and says, my daughter needs to be healed, I know you can do it. I expect you're going to do it because I have been annoying enough. You can't get rid of me now, Jesus. I'm here. She expected it. She had one answer that she was going for, one result. And Jesus is like, done. He didn't have to walk. He might have been in the kitchen washing his hands after eating. And this lady is right there. Okay. Poof, gone. I wish we could see how she responded. What? She heads home. You can tell she was booking it. She was running. We're talking like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Get out of my way. I just won a golden ticket. We're going. I'm on a mission. And she goes home, and her daughter, we don't know how long that her daughter had been possessed, but her daughter was probably sitting there and waiting for her mom to come home, and her mom comes in. Cue the tears. Cue the excitement. Cue the amazingness, how she and her faith in the Son of David and what it did for her life. If it doesn't give you little tinglies, wake up, people. See, faith expects that your God will lovingly and gracefully answer your prayers. Faith believes that God will seek your best even if you do not see it at the time. Faith believes that just a glimpse of Jesus and his power is great enough to answer you and your problems. Faith expects something because it's Jesus. Now I want to say, if it doesn't seem like God is answering your prayers right now, and maybe there's something you have been praying and praying and praying, and you're like, God is not answering, and you don't really know what it is. We're going to go back through some of these things and bring that to bear. First thing I want to ask is when you've been praying and demonstrating and trying to show your faith and asking something from God, do you have a clearly defined problem for God to answer? See, this lady says, have mercy on me, son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. In essence, my problem as a demon, something beyond my control, has taken control of my daughter. Jesus, I need your help. This is the problem. It is very clearly defined. And sometimes we don't see God at work because our prayers are so just like out there. God, I pray for world peace. And then we turn on the news. We don't have world peace yet. God's not answering my prayer. And forget the fact that, from a worldwide scale, the fact that we haven't nuked each other yet is an act of God, I would say. I'm just going to be honest. You have world leaders taunting each other with whose button's bigger. What is that? At a moment's notice, we could just all be gone. I think God's answering that prayer request. But we don't think about it because our problem is too big. And we don't really know what we're asking. And so you gotta narrow down your problem into something, especially if it's something in your life. And sometimes this is gonna require you to think about it a little bit because your problem might just be, I don't like this, God. God's like, I know. What's this? Well, this, everything. God's like, well, from my standpoint, you got a house, you got a job, you got a family. I'm still lost to the problem here. And then we're like, well, I'm not satisfied here. Or God, I'm struggling with this relationship here. I would like it to be better. Or God, I'm not this, I'm not that. You guys see how it narrows this down? Because when we begin to narrow down our problem, this requires us to think about it, okay? As we begin to narrow down our problem and say, this is what my heart is struggling with. This is what I'm having a problem with. When we clearly define that problem, we can go to Jesus and we can actually watch him work. Because it's right here where we can see it. We can watch it move. I know how this thing can be answered. So we have to define our problem, what we are struggling with. Next thing I want to say, are we persistent about it? Do not take the approach where we just hand it to God and then just forget about it. Because if we do that, it probably wasn't that big of a problem in the first place. Maybe you need to go back to point one and clearly define your problem and what you're struggling with. Write it down. Now, don't be persistent about every single prayer. You will get prayer fatigue. I'm serious. It happens when you have like a giant list of prayer requests and you feel like you're praying for them all the time anyway, and eventually you gloss over them. And anybody who says, I am so focused on every prayer. No, we're not. We zone out. We're human sometimes. But we can do it. And so it has to be, that problem has to have gripped us. And it has to have owned us. And we have to just hand it to God in a form that we can see move, and we can see how God, and we have to hand it. And that is what needs to happen. We can keep praying for other people. We can. I encourage us to, okay? But we all know that problem. And if we want to have our faith stretched and shown and demonstrated, we have to hand God that problem and keep watching it. And watching what God decides to do with it. And not let our eyes off of it. Because as soon as we do, we're going to hand him like a caterpillar, and we're like, it's a butterfly. We want to watch that happen. Focus, persist, keep handing it to God. Also, we saw that our faith is determined by how we view Jesus. And I want to encourage us, our view of Jesus is shaped by the Word of God, and it is shaped by our community of fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Because sometimes you have to listen to someone else's story to realize that what the Bible is saying is actually true. Yeah, I know that sounds terrible, but sometimes we're like, yeah, that was just for him. That was just for him. Until we listen to somebody else share their faith and how God has this problem has broken them, and they're like, oh my word, I hated it. I was struggling so much, but I kept trying, and then God answered it. And we're like, if God does it to the people in the Bible, and he does it for Joe Schmo in community group, or that I know, maybe he could do it in my life. It's why this is such a big deal, doing this with each other. And then lastly, do we expect what we have asked? And this goes back to really how we view Jesus. Do we believe that he loves you enough to want the best and is going to give you the best for you? And if we do, then we just got to hold out just a little bit longer and keep expecting and keep trusting. And so I know you guys are having your problems. I know you guys are having your struggles, where it's physical health, whether it's finances, whether it's struggling in your home and in your relationships with one another. I know we all have our problems. It could even be just trying to get a business off the ground. I don't know. But God does. And clearly define that problem and hand it to him and watch God work. Because he will. Please tell me. Maybe not all the details, because it might be weird. But just say, hey, I've been praying for this and God answered it.